people thought that she wasn't being ethical when she named them. I'm all for putting them in a VR headset. Put them in Gorilla Tag.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Everything But the Cats. DJ's keeping up with me on the whiteboard here. We are the podcast where we talk about everything, every single thing. We have already talked about multiple examples of controlled flight into terrain. We have talked about multiple examples of other weird stuff happening throughout history, government agency cover ups and whatnot. I don't know. Survival anthrophagy? I think I'm pronouncing that right. Anyways, we talk about everything except for the cats. And my name is Gage.
I'm DJ.
And we are going to be talking about something,
Mm-hmm.
and I know very little about what we are going to be talking about. What I do know is that before we got ready to record, DJ texted me and said something along the lines of, "What do you know about Jane Goodall?" And the answer is not a lot. I know slightly more right now than I did before we initially started recording, because we got about 10 minutes into the recording and I had not been picking up DJ's audio. So here we are. What I do know about Jane Goodall, I apologize, I'm stealing some of your thunder,
It's all yours.
is that she's 90. She's still alive. She is not my high school English teacher, Jane Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like 6 to 10 years old during World War II. And I don't know what DJ was about to say about her father, but he mentioned her father. So she had a father.
Yeah. So also Gage and I we're doing another like everything but the cats. That's what the show is called. Doing another like baby archives kind of thing. So I'm just kind of teaching him. He already kind of mentioned that. We have added a whiteboard to this episode because there are some parts that are going to get a little complicated, and I think it'll help some. So if you're listening along on Spotify,
Or
and you're like,
Apple
man, they're
Music.
laughing about something. Yeah, or anywhere else.
Yeah, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, Podchaser, wherever you're listening, thank you.
Public radio, NPR, if that's
iHeartRadio.
still
We are on
funded.
iHeartRadio. So
Hey,
thank you.
we made it, Mom. So yeah, so if you're all of a sudden you hear us laughing and we didn't say a joke, maybe I wrote something funny. So think about that. Good luck. Anyways, we've got Jane Goodall, who everything that Gage said is true. She is not Jane Campbell, our high school English teacher. She is Jane Goodall, and Jane Goodall was born in 1934. And just some, I guess, almost a spoiler of where we're gonna go with her. She is like one of the most famous, like a leading. Wait for it. Primatologist, and
Oh.
is really famous for going and spending like decades living in Tanzania, among like a colony of chimps on the. I've got to get my east and west right. Western side of the country. Boom. Oh. Tanzania. So that's who she is. My best understanding would be that like Jane from Tarzan is based on her, would be my assumption. I don't know that for sure, but it would stand to reason. So that's kind of the overall. So she's born in 1934, which makes her like 6 to 10 years old ish when World War II is happening. That's totally irrelevant. But Gage was curious if it had anything to do, if she had anything to do with World War II. But when she's a kid, her dad or her mom or someone gave her a stuffed chimpanzee toy when she was a kid, and her family members and stuff, like extended family, were like, isn't that gonna scare her? That thing's ugly. And they're like, oh no, she loves animals or whatever, and she still has it to this day. Apparently, the little stuffed chimpanzee toy she got when she was a kid. But she also references that as being this thing that made her like love animals. So she's super interested in animals, and I don't know, the sources I looked through, which is Wikipedia. I did try to find other sources as well this time, to be clear. But the most detailed information I could find was Wikipedia, which was different.
Yeah, that's
But
normally
anyways,
not the case.
yeah, like I think I need to buy her book if I want more information on a lot of this. So Wikipedia kind of carried me pretty well. I'm not citing any sources. I did look elsewhere this time. I did a pretty good job this time. Not to brag, I am bragging. But anyways, what's up?
I think I know where this goes.
Where do you think this goes?
Okay, I don't think I know where this goes. But we talked about this because normally when DJ does an episode, it's about controlled flight into terrain or involves cannibalism of some sort or something along those lines. And DJ said, well, not anthrophagy. It's primophagy. It's chimps eating chimps to survive.
Is it?
I'm guessing.
Sure.
That's my best stab in the dark so far.
No, that's a good stab in the dark. Yeah, so I told Gage that we weren't talking about survival anthrophagy, which is people eating people to survive, but it was maybe adjacent to it. And so that's Gage's theory, is that it's chimps eating chimps to survive. It is, in fact, a chimp eat chimp world out there. So it makes sense. But anyways, yeah, so go buy her book probably if you want more information on this.
What's her book called?
She has a few.
Oh, okay.
If you just Google it, you'll find it. There's one from like 2010 called like Looking Through the Window or something like that that probably has most of what we're talking about today. So that's that. She's into animals. Somehow she's interested in Africa as well. And so the Wikipedia article just kind of glazes over it and is like, so she found herself at the farm of a friend in Kenya.
Where's she from?
England.
England. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a bit easier to end up in Kenya from over there than from here.
Most people in England have a friend with a farm in Kenya.
That's so true. It's actually the same guy though. Like he's just very. Oh yeah,
He's very well known in England.
New Kenyan Greg is what they called him.
Kenyan Greg.
Yeah, Kenyan Greg. So was buds with him, and somehow over the course of that, got in connection with a guy named Louis Leakey, who is another leading primatologist, and he like essentially offered her like an internship or a job with him working in Tanzania studying chimpanzees. And so she's 26 years old in 1960. 1960, she's 26 years old, does not have any college experience in like biology or primatology or anything like that, and goes to Tanzania and just starts living among the chimps and studying them. And it's on like that's one of the coolest things that I've ever heard of. Like that's awesome.
I mean, yeah, just people used to just go do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, sometimes I like so I'm a person, I have a desire to live overseas, right? And I still have that desire, but sometimes I just think about how like when people went in the 60s and 70s and stuff like that, like they were going to like these places that were actually out in the middle of nowhere where there's like no communication back home, and like it was like walking into like a different world. And nowadays there are some places in the world where you can still kind of do that, but even still, the place you're gonna go, like everyone's gonna be wearing their Chiefs three-peat t-shirts and like on their smartphones. So I think that every once in a while it's like, man, I do would have been cool to go back then, but still neat. Anyways, 1960, she's 26 years old, no college at all, and just goes and starts doing this, and is going to become like again like one of the most decorated, known about primatologists. Like she's Steve Irwin, right? Of monkeys. Sorry, not monkeys, chimps.
So, real quick,
Yeah,
the Planet of the Apes series isn't actually apes in most of the iterations. It's chimpanzees. Does she have anything to do with the Planet of the Apes series?
I don't know.
Because I feel like the timeline kind of lines up because those movies started in like the 70s, I think.
That's true. That would make sense. Like if she got to speak into them at all.
Yeah.
Actually, let's shelve that. Let's come back to that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah. So that's pretty much everything about her. She would later go on to get a doctorate from 1962 to like 1965. She went to Cambridge.
Okay.
And she was one of only 8. So Cambridge was founded in like 1240 or something like that, and she was the 8th person to be allowed to get a doctorate without having a bachelor's degree.
Holy cow.
So yeah, like hundreds of years later, she's number 8. And I think she did get her bachelor's as a part of the process, but she was admitted like for a doctorate. Like she was accepted for a doctorate without having her bachelor's yet. So
That's
she
like
got her doctorate.
for the anime fans out there real quick. That's like Naruto becoming Hokage before he passed the Chunin exams.
Yeah, and so she lived and researched when she was in Tanzania. She was specifically at the Gombe Stream National Park, studying chimpanzees. Had a little research station set up. Had a like a feeding station where I keep saying monkeys, the chimps, could come get bananas. And there are some things that, if you look back at history, and maybe even then at the time, there are some things that were like, is that the most effective way to do it? Like feeding them and like kind of entering their world a bit more. Maybe not. It's like in a way, what she went to do was like anthropology, but with chimpanzees. And so it's a lot of the same complaints you hear from people about like how there's a right way to do anthropology where like you don't put yourself into the culture at all, you just observe, but you can't really observe the culture unless you're like also like a part of the culture a little bit. And there are just a lot of difficulties there. But that concludes our first section about Jane Goodall.
Okay.
We're still gonna be talking about her. I'm just gonna kind of control Z until she's out of here. Oh no. All right, I goofed. I don't know how to redo. I can just tap redo. Oh, undo. Okay. So that's Jane Goodall. Now we should talk about chimpanzees real quick. We're putting the pieces together. So, Gage, what do you know about chimpanzees?
So they are not monkeys or apes.
Not. They might be apes.
Are they?
I think
Oh no,
ape.
yes, they are apes.
Yeah,
I'm thinking
might just be like
gorillas.
big monkeys. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm thinking gorillas. Uh, I know that
Mm-hmm.
chimpanzees are smart, like they're intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a mischievous streak about them. Brittany, my sister, actually went to the zoo not too long ago and didn't realize. Now, I know, kind of like what you were talking about just a few seconds ago, with like putting yourself into the environment. Um,
Yeah.
but like Brittany said that she didn't know that chimpanzees who were at the zoo specifically like to scare people. And so she was
Hmm.
like right up
Nice.
against the glass, and then one of them just like bolted toward her,
That's
and
really funny.
started like laughing when she like jumped.
That's really good. Yeah, that's clever. That's a clever animal. Anything else chimp wise?
I mean, nothing's really coming to mind. Is
Yeah,
it chimps that have learned sign language? I know there have been gorillas who have, but are there chimps as well?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll put maybe sign language. That's a weird M.
It works though.
Maybe sign language. Ah, dang it. Yeah. So who knows about the sign language? So some notes about chimpanzees. They are, if you ask the world of biology, they are our closest genetic relatives.
Hmm.
And so I am not sure if the understanding would be that like we evolved specifically from them would be like that person's understanding or exactly how that works. But either way, we share a lot of DNA, which we share a lot of DNA with like bananas, but we share more with chimps.
Feeding
So
bananas to the chimpanzees, it's cannibalism. Uh,
it's anthrophage, primophagy. Yeah. So they're our closest genetic relatives, and then we actually have a couple things in common with them.
hmm,
I guess the big one. So for a long time before Jane went there in 1960, there was a belief. There were a couple beliefs. One was that what set humankind apart was that we can use
tools.
tools. Yeah, and be tools. But then we like thought about it. We're like, like a cat can be a tool. They're really good at it. So it can't be that one. But what we thought set us apart was the fact that we could use tools. And she's there for a little while and notices that some of the chimpanzees have like taken a stick and like started like poking around in like termite mounds and like in trees to like get termites and then like eating off of the stick. So it's becomes clear like okay they can use tools, so that kind of takes away some of it. And then later she sees a couple of them working together to like remove specific branches off of the branch so that it'd be a better stick to like poke into the ground and into trees. And so not only can they use tools, they can create tools. And I didn't really leave myself a lot of room for create and create.
Kind of like crows.
Kind of like crows. Yeah.
In the
I,
words of my friend DJ, they can use a tool to make a tool. And I forget the last part. It was like to get the nuts out of the
something like
container or
that.
something like that.
Man, I forgot that line in there. I did a speech in high school, sophomore year of high school. I got third at state with it, and it was about crows and how smart they are. And they're pretty smart. That actually would be a good episode to do
Yeah.
sometime. I don't know why we haven't done that before. So, anyways, chimps can use and create tools, and that sets them apart from other animals, except for crows, if you ask 15-year-old DJ. Specifically, the two chimps. It's not foreshadowing or anything, but the two chimps that she saw doing it at first, she named them. This is actually pretty something pretty unique and pretty controversial. I'm trying to see where I've got it in my notes here. I'll go ahead and mention it now. But she names them, which isn't how they used to do it back in the day. And so these two specific chimps, one she named David Graybeard. And I want to be clear, there are other chimps named like Flo. And like is David Graybeard and Goliath is the other one. And so one got a whole name and the other didn't. What, Gage?
You said this isn't really foreshadowing. And then I'm
Oh, that's
David and
funny.
Goliath. I'm just
That's really
thinking
funny.
like
Yeah, that's really funny.
make a slingshot
Yeah, yeah. What tool did they figure out how to use
and
as
a
a sling?
sword.
Yeah. No, I was thinking as I was researching this, I was like, what if I went to Tanzania right now, uh, showed up to some chimps, handed one of them a gun, like shot one, gave another one the gun. It's like, all right, have at it, man. Like, do they figure it out? I'm curious. How advanced of tools can they use?
We give one of them a VR headset and just watch what happens. Put it on one of those roller
Really
coaster
funny.
simulators.
Let me document this in my notes. Oh man, that would be wild. I'm here for it though. I'm way less like people thought that she wasn't being ethical when she named them. I'm all for putting them in a VR headset. Put them in gorilla tag. See, see
Oh
what
gosh,
happens.
the gorilla soccer thing that we did.
Yeah,
Golly,
yeah, I bet they'd win.
I was so like I got so sick from that.
Yeah, but their names were David Greybeard and Goliath.
Okay.
So that's fun. It was also thought at the time that they were vegetarians, and she continued to believe that right up until she saw them eating a dead pig, uh, and that convinced her. And then sometimes she would see them like hunt and kill like monkeys and stuff like that. Um, so she learned that they are in fact not vegetarians. So those are a couple facts about them. The main thing, like I said, she was mostly doing like anthropology of sorts. Um, the main thing, and she already knew this, but that she's wanting to learn more about, is that they're very social. Chimpanzees are a very social group. They have almost like tribes is a pretty good word. You can follow a group or tribe over the years and see dynamics change. Like these two used to be best friends, but now they don't really like each other that much anymore. Or like this guy was like the like alpha male, but he like there's a stronger one out there now, so he's not anymore. So now he's just kind of picking up the slack and helping. And they're very social. Um, yeah, you'll see dynamics change. And it's if you start, it's tricky. Like, do you use the word culture and stuff like that? Like, probably not. But you can see like almost culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like proto culture. Um, they're always male dominated.
You can see like
Um,
hierarchies and stuff.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. They're always male dominated. Usually, there's like an alpha type, and as far as I could piece together in my notes, let me social run out of space here. As far as I could put together in my notes, essentially it was the idea was like if any given chimp can single-handedly beat up all the other males, he becomes the alpha. Which honestly, like I would say, humanity, same deal, right?
Yeah.
Like you get one guy, he's in a cage with all of the rest of humanity, and like he alone wins. He can be my king.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'll allow it. Yeah, and so there's usually an alpha. Sometimes there isn't, but there'll be like the highest one, but he
That's
like
real,
isn't quite powerful enough.
real
What
quick. That's the future Joe Rogan wants.
is a king? Oh, it's just him beating us all up.
No, just
That's
the
funny.
strongest dude being the king. That's
Gotcha.
the future he wants.
Believe it. Has he said that?
Oh no, it's just that makes sense with everything I know
Yeah.
about Joe Rogan.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Either the strongest dude or the dude that can do the best at Fear Factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how the chimps work. The strongest one wins, just like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And they're also very territorial, which isn't unique to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like wolves are territorial. I mean, middle of the night, Angela's not staying in her lane. I get a little territorial. Like I definitely get it. So those are kind of all the important things about them. They might know sign language. Who knows? They're probably born with it if they do. Um, so that's chimpanzees. Do you have any questions?
I think I got most of my questions out for the moment.
Cool.
Um, I'm interested to see what this is all combining into.
Yeah. No, that's gonna be such a dumb joke. Have you heard about the first human chimpanzee child? Anyways, let's talk about some more monkeys.
Actual monkeys this time?
No, it's still the chimps.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if I write this word down here, it is Kasakela. That's a K. There we are. Does that mean anything to you?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to. It's this like one of the specific groups of chimps that Jane was studying. So it is a group of chimps, and like I said, they live at the Gombe Stream National Park. The Gombe Stream National Park is up next to Lake Tanganyika, which is what Tanzania used to be called. Well, just Tanganyika. It's NYI, which is a tricky little. Here, I'll write the word down in case you need to see it, and I want you to shoot your shot.
I mean, you already kind of said
Shoot
like
it.
Tanganyika. Tanganyika.
Go ahead and make sure to censor that one out when you.
There are a lot. Yeah, that's interesting. That's hard.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. But that's what Tanzania used to be called, and then it joined together with Zanzibar, and it was in like the 60s, and so they renamed it to Tanzania. So it's a much easier word to say now. But she was at Lake Tanganyika, which might even be Lake Tanzania now, because when she went, she went to Tanganyika and left Tanzania.
That must have felt weird.
Must have been so weird. Anyways, she's studying the Kasakela group, and like I said earlier, contrary to the norms at the time, she would name them. So, earlier, we had David Greybeard and Goliath and all that. And there are some people that are what was normal at the time was instead of naming them, like that's chimp number 6. I drew a 6 for reference.
How is that different from naming them?
Yeah, so something that's going to come up in this story, and I imagine if you were to read her book, I can't say for sure. Something that's going to come up in the story is the issue of anthropomorphism, not anthrophagy.
Darn.
Which is when you assign human traits to non-human animals or things. And mostly it's fine. Like, you throw some googly eyes on the microwave, and now that's Mr. Microwave, and he's super cute.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can be a little tricky when you're studying animals because you're assigning, like, human thoughts and rationale and actions and ideas to them, when, like, the real reason that penguin, like, knocked over the other penguin is because instincts. Like, he wasn't jealous that penguin stole his lover or whatever. Like, for some reason, the stupid penguin thought it would be silly. Like, not even that. Like, for some reason, the stupid penguin knocked over the other stupid penguin.
Yeah.
And so I think my guess is that would be the biggest thing. Not that naming them is inherently anthropomorphism, but it, like, certainly lends it to it. So when, like, chimp 37 does something to chimp 23, it's very clinical, whereas when Jeff does something to Jeff 2, then, like, it just feels easier to, like, make it something human when maybe it's not. So that would be my guess as to their complaint. So Kasakela is the group of chimpanzees that she's studying. Like I said, she's renaming them. Like, hey, you call yourself you're Bill now. So no, but she names them, and she actually did an interesting thing with naming them. She named them following matrilineal lines, which makes some sense. Because it, like, you can't really tell who a given chimp's dad is. Or, like, there are scenarios where you couldn't tell, right? I don't know how faithful they are. My study doesn't seem like they're, like, super, you're not, I almost said stuck. That's weird. I don't mean that.
They're
like,
not really into monogamy.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as I could tell.
Tied to it.
Yeah. But there are some stories where it's like, oh yeah, this this one's dad was blank. So maybe, who knows, right?
Mm-hmm.
But matrilineally, yeah. And you can follow the line based on the first letter of the name. So, for instance, and this is a real example, Flo is the mother of Fabin, Fegan, and Flint. Let me.
Okay.
Flo, Fabin, Fegan, Flint.
Tag yourself. I'm vegan.
Dibs on Flint.
Okay.
Definitely the coolest name so far. Her daughter, Fifi, is the mother of Freud, Proto, etc. The current, so here's a little spoiler. The current, like alpha male, like today, is in this line, and I can't remember his name, but it starts with an F. Is he Frodo?
Fart.
Freud? So, I don't know. Flirt?
Fart.
Fart. That's funny. There is one named Flirt, somewhere along the line. But anyways,
Okay.
that's how she does it. So you can more or less see what family they're from based on their name. I do think, like with David Greybeard, for instance, and Goliath, I think that the chimps that were already adults when she got there, she can't really know who their families are and who their parents are and all that. So I think she took a little bit of liberty in how she named the older ones. But then once they started having kids, she named them appropriately.
DJ, in 50 years, I'm probably going to start calling you David Greybeard.
So the other day, I can't remember like why Angela was at a height where she could see my hair. It doesn't happen often. But she was looking down at me, and all of a sudden she like grabs my hair and is just kind of looking around. What is that, like lice? Like what's going on? And she's like, I found a gray hair. So I got my first gray. I mean, I probably had it at 28, at the end of 28. But
Yeah.
we're going.
I used to get those.
Uh-huh. Since you were a boy.
I actually really did. Like, I had two gray patches right here. For those of you who are listening, it's on either side of the top front of my skull. And I always thought it was like birthmarks. And as you can see, it's not. But they were some of the first spots to go bald. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Like, was it just really, really specific? What is it that like Alec has?
Oh, vitiligo?
Yeah. Was it just really specific vitiligo?
Doubt it. Because
Yeah,
that would alter the skin tone. And
you're right. You're right. It would.
yeah.
Interesting. Anyways, she named them. That was controversial. But for the first 10 years that she's there, everything is going kind of normally. She shows up, doesn't have a doctorate. Part of the way through, she has a doctorate now. But she learns, like I said earlier, she learns that chimps use tools. She learns that they eat meat. She has that feeding station that I talked about, and she uses that to like gain their trust. Like, hey, come eat a banana. Also, I'm going to try touching you. And slowly but surely, like they start to trust her and lose their fear about her. And it's actually, I can't remember where it is, but it's documented like this was the first chimp that came up to the feeding station, or like I think it might be David Greybeard. There's like a picture, and it's like he was the first one that started to not fear her so much. All is going well. So some context about the Kasakela group in particular. When she shows up, we'll just kind of track this line on the whiteboard here. When she shows up, the first alpha for 60 to 64 is Goliath. So he's one of the ones that was making tools, which probably helps to be an alpha when you can use tools. But instead I'm not. So that probably helps. But then in 60, like 64, 65, he, declines. And so 65 through 69. This is how I know she was not on top of her game when she first showed up. The alpha is someone else named Mike. So yeah, so it's a chimpanzee named Mike.
Real quick,
Is
how long do chimps live normally?
That's a great question. I think I saw one. It was like a 50-year span or something like that.
Really? Okay.
I think so. I'm gonna Google it real quick because I'll feel silly if I'm wrong. And I'm never wrong about stuff.
This is the podcast of nothing wrong ever being said.
Okay, so in captivity, it looks like 32 years for males, 39 years for females.
Okay.
So I probably just did bad math. The average lifespan of a wild chimpanzee is relatively short. They usually live, I was way off, less than 15 years.
No, you had the right, like, you had a 5.
I just threw an N on there on the end of it.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops. Uh, the average lifespan of wild chimpanzee is relatively short. They usually live less than 15 years, although individuals that reach 12 years may live an additional 15 years. Okay, check this. On rare occasions, wild chimpanzees may live nearly 60 years.
Oh my gosh.
So the average lifespan is less than 15 years, but every once in a while, this guy will show up and live 4 lifetimes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The oldest known male captive, this is really funny, chimpanzee to have been documented lived to 66 years. And the oldest female, named Little Mama, was nearly 80 years old. So there's that. It's quite the range. So the fact that I was pretty sure I saw someone that had lived like a 50-year range makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's possible. But also some of the dates for when like this chimp was born was before she was there. So like it's like this chimp was probably born in like 1943. Prove it. Like show me the birth certificate. Like what are we doing here?
You just
I
gotta
also
count
don't
the
know.
rings.
This is so true. That's really funny. No, I don't know how much she like was by herself versus showing up to something that was already happening. So maybe there was some of that, but a lot of what she did, like she was just starting herself. So, anyways, we've got Goliath, we've got Mike, and then from 69 to 71, it's a guy. By guy, I mean chimp. Named Humphrey, which is a solid chimp name, in my opinion. Way better than Mike.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And then from 71 to like 73, there's no one in charge. Like there are chimps that are like, there's just no one that's like dominant enough to be like the guy.
Chaos.
There's chaos.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What I will say is that as Mike leaves office, things are about to get spicy.
Okay.
Welcome, Gage.
Is this like a chimp war?
Go ahead and close your eyes, and I'm gonna write out the title for the next section.
Okay, my eyes are closed.
I'll tell you when I'm ready.
It's gonna say like the chimp massacre, chimp war, or chimp uprising, or something like that.
Open them. Welcome, Gage, to the Gombe Chimpanzee War.
Is this like a chimp war? Okay. I've asked ChatGPT to give me just like weird events in history to do potential episodes on, and I'm almost certain this was on the list, and I was just like, nah, that doesn't sound like me.
That's funny. Well, it sounds like me, apparently. Yeah, so it's also known as the 4-Year War. So you can guess what that entails.
4 years of war.
4 years of war. Like I said, we've got the Kasakela group, and they are one of the main groups that Jane Goodall has been studying while she's been in Tanzania for the past 10, 11 years. But toward the end of Mike's time, which, like I said, ended in 1969. So we'll call it 1969, 1970, kind of in there. Jane and her colleagues, they begin noticing like this divide growing amongst the Kasakela chimps. And so we've got, well, I'll get into that later. Some reports are, well, we'll go ahead and, so we've got Kasakela, like the OGs, right? And then we've got like these separatists, and ultimately they're going to end up named the Kahama tribe. So I'll go ahead and label them that, and we're going to kind of keep track of who's on which tribe and stuff like that. That's the main, this is the main reason I wanted to do this.
That's my favorite Dragon Ball attack.
Sakela. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, so there's some, like, they start kind of dividing. Like, these two were friends, now they're not friends so much, and he's spending more time with like these groups. And some reports indicate that this is one of those things where like anthropomorphism kind of starts to play like a weird role. Like, well, actually, these two chimps, it was very clear that they didn't actually support this guy as leader. They wanted that guy as leader, and so when whoever became leader afterwards, then like when Humphrey became leader, they didn't support Humphrey, and because they didn't support Humphrey, then they started this rival sect, and like it's like, did you ask them, like, what did they tell you? But like, it's just the anthropomorphism is a little weird, and so I'm gonna try not to lean too much into it, but there's clearly some amount of it in this thing that is called war, right? So the larger original group, which is we're gonna continue to call Kasakela, they stayed in like the northern region of their territory. So we'll go ahead and throw a little N here, and then the others, who will later become called the Kahama, they moved toward the southern part. The Kasakela group was a lot larger. The new guys was a pretty small sect. They mostly stayed separated. The northern, tribe stayed in the north. The southern tribe stayed in the south. Every once in a while, the people from the southern tribe, the Kahama, would go up into the north and kind of make some, I say people, the chimps, would go into the north and kind of make some trouble. And there were actually the two big kahunas were, let me check their names here, also dumb chimp names, Hugh and Charlie. Charlie's a pretty good chimp name, in my opinion. But they were like these two big beefy dudes, and they would just go do stuff. And if there was one of them, then the other chimps would give them trouble. But if they were both together, then the other chimps would just kind of watch them, even though they were like in the other territory, would be fine. However, a few of the chimps were able to keep like some amount of peace, even though they were there was a split between them. So it's like a church split, but you're still friends with the people at the other church. And so on the new tribe, we had our boy. He used to be an alpha male, right? We got our boy Goliath. And then on the new tribe, I'm gonna leave space for leaders. We've got Mike, who also used to be an alpha, and Rodolph, which is, she, like, how many names does she know? Yeah. So, anyways, Goliath was still buds with Mike and Rodolph, and so like they'd hang out still, kind of on the border. They were fine, but it was clear like he's spending most of his time in the south. He's kind of with them, but he's still buds with these guys. And then finally, a couple years later, so it's like 1972-ish, it becomes clear like these aren't just two subgroups anymore of one group. Like these are two separate tribes. Like they've got their own distinct territories. They have their own distinct leaders. Like they're their own tribes. And so the new tribe in the south was given a new name, Kahama, and the lines of where each chimp stood became clear. So I'm going to go ahead and write down, these aren't, as far as I understand, these aren't like the whole list They're just lists that include like kind of the main players. It might be a whole list for the Kahama because Kahama is much smaller. But Kasakela was led by Fegan, who, if you remember, is the son of Flo.
Is also me.
Is also you. And then some other names on this tribe. There's some wild names on this tribe. The next one, as a matter of fact, I genuinely do not know how many names she knew, because this guy is named Satan. So, and then these are all males, by the way. There are obviously females, but like most of the warmongers are gonna be males. So this one, is Sherry, that poor guy. This one, oh, I won't put you up next to Fegan. He's the leader. He deserves respect. Everred, also Fegan. Where'd that come from?
Everred?
Everred.
Okay.
That's a dope name.
For a
we're not disputing that one. It's dope. Rodolph, like I said, I know what you've thought before. You're like, man, I just wish every time I say Romeo and Juliet, gosh, I could really save some syllables here. So this guy is named Jomeo. And then Mike and Humphrey, who is... Well, I almost wrote Mike again. Who... I said, well, led by Fegan, which is interesting.
Because Humphrey's the alpha.
Yeah. So I think it's saying that like Fegan was like kind of the most dominant, because we're into like 72 through 74 where there wasn't an alpha.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the idea is that Fegan was like the most dominant, because Fegan and one of his brothers, they kind of go back and forth at points. And then there's another guy named Goblin that like things get weird with. So yeah. Anyways, always goblins. Over with Kahama, it is led, like I said, by Hugh and Charlie. They're brothers that cause trouble. Goliath is over there. And then we've got a few others. Guy named Goody. His name starts with God. A little something there, I think. Who knows? And then this guy's got a stupid name. So stupid it's Deh. So that's fun. And then in Wikipedia it says, and I quote, "The young sniff." So these are our rosters. These are our battles, and like I said, for the most part, they're chill for a while, or occasionally they're territorial. So someone will come over into their territory, and they'll usually, a lot of times, if I'm a chimp and someone comes into my territory, if it's a female and she's of like childbearing age or whatever, I'll just steal her, and now she lives with us now. If it's female, not of childbearing age, or like is pregnant, or like has just had a kid, you might just kill her. But if it's a guy, usually it'll just be like, hey, like dogs barking at each other from opposite sides of a fence. And then eventually, you both leave barking at each other, and that's that. You hope you never catch the car, and when you do, you just kind of leave, I guess. So that's usually what happens. But so on January 7th, 1974, Goody is up on a tree. He's got his little termite thing going, and he's fishing for him, getting some termites. And what he doesn't hear is 6 adult Kasakela males. That is Humphrey, Fegan, Jomeo, Sherry, Everett, and Rodolph approaching him. And when his back is turned, they attack. So he immediately realizes he's overpowered. He's trying to run away, and he doesn't make it. They grab him, like throw him to the ground, like he's up in a tree. They throw him to the ground, follow him down to the ground, and just start beating him until he stops moving.
Oh my goodness.
It's wild and it's unprecedented. Like it was common to see chimps fight. It was common to see, not common. It was like every once in a while you would see chimps like kill each other,
Mm-hmm.
but you never saw like them intending to kill each other for one, or two, like them like planning a sneak attack or like plotting together to kill someone. So like the fact that it was like plotted out is like this very unique thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they plotted to kill him, and then they killed him. Apparently, someone was just like some human was just watching this, like, huh, pip pip, or whatever they say when they watch their beloved chimp get murdered.
I love Chelsea.
Oi!
Get on me, pub.
That's funny. I was reading up on one of the chimps. I can't remember who it was, but it was like sometimes when he was feeling moody, he would beat up Jane. And like I was like, it was just a little throwaway sentence in the middle of it, and she kept doing the job. So that's something. But anyways, he stopped moving, but he did get back up after they left. But the assumption is that shortly after he succumbed to his injuries and died. And there are going to be a lot of stories that are kind of like that, where they got beat up and then they walked away and then they were just never seen again. So there's a chance that they're at that big chimp farm upstate, hanging out together. But probably he's dead by now for sure. But yeah, so like I said, that kind of marked the very first observed deliberate attempt by chimpanzees to kill a fellow male, where it was like plotted out. And then it kept happening. I don't know how long after. Like I said earlier, it's called the 4-Year War. I tried to find dates, but I couldn't find them anywhere. But after Goodall is killed, the next is going to be Day. So let me go ahead and... the next is going to be Day. And it's kind of the exact same thing, where he's minding his own business, and all of a sudden a bunch of the Kasakela chimps pop out of nowhere and just start beating him until he stops moving, and then like leave him for dead. One thing I didn't mention in the last one was that there was a female who wasn't like participating, like she wasn't fighting when Goodall was attacked, but she was just like running around screaming as they were fighting, and she was a Kasakela female, so she's like with them. She's good with the attackers, and she's like running around screaming. But during Day's attack, she's like actively fighting alongside them and like helping kill him.
During the attack on Goodall, the other Kasakela chimps laid their cloaks down at her feet, and during the one with Day, she was very involved. She had stones.
Anyways, Day was severely wounded and likely died soon after. Kind of the same situation, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's where things get a little sadder, maybe. Oh, let me. Yeet is next. Is gonna be this is sad to me a little. Right? I'm not like super attached to these guys. I didn't name them. But next is going to be the attack on Goliath. So Goliath, he was there when she first arrived. He was like the leader when she first arrived, which means he was already kind of an adult by the time she arrived. So he's old. He had been, old by the time she got there, and he's old now. Like I said earlier, he was friendly with the people from the Kasakela. Like he was buds with Mike and Rodolph. And like they would still, hang out and not fight and be okay. And this is something that's interesting. Like it can be easy to lean too far in anthropomorphism, like I've said.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting to think about the idea that like Goliath used to be like the alpha type, and like he still was buds with Mike and Rodolph. And so like for some of these, like it's this guy that like they grew up alongside. Like it's not or like grew up alongside, or like they grew up like looking up to. Like he was the boss when they were kids, for instance.
Bro, this is actually like super dramatic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to read the book, right? Like, well, let me try this again. Sorry. So chimp number 2, he used to be the alpha, but he still would spend time with chimps number 3 and 7. But now chimps 6, 4, 1, 9, and 3022 are gonna kill him. So things have gotten spicy. But yeah, no, it is interesting. Just thinking like, it is curious, like what does go through a chimp's mind? Like, how much are they processing? Like, oh yeah, this guy, like, I used to look up to him, and now I'm fighting him. Versus just like, my instincts tell me to kill.
Yeah.
But he's walking along, and he's ambushed by a patrol, and I'm not sure which side of the territory he was on. But the patrol didn't have any of his old buds in it. It did have Fabian brothers, Humphrey, Satan, and Jomeo.
Is this where
And
Satan got his name?
I think he already had it.
Okay.
Yeah, would be my assumption. And this fight in particular was like just very brutal. At one point, so they were like fighting him and beating him just like they did with all of them. He likely succumbed to his wounds shortly after the assault. But at one point, whatever poor human is watching this and like taking notes, like, oh, he bit him, is watching and notices like, oh, it's like they're like trying to rip his leg off. Like Fabian is like trying to rip his leg off. So it's very brutal and very, yeah, just not good. Natural though, that makes it good. And yeah, we'll get into it later. But there are just this challenged some of Jane Goodall's ideas of like the nature of like chimps. Like, she was like, oh yeah, I just thought like they're like humans, sure, but kinder. And then she sees like this whole war happen. She's like, oh no, they're as bad. Got it. Like, they are as bad as us.
So like
Cool.
there's a handful of questions going through my head right now, and maybe we'll
Sure.
get to them. And if we do get to them, please just tell me, hold on to
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
But like, first and foremost, I wonder, and I guess this isn't so much a question as it is just a thought, but I wonder how much the influence of the humans being there, observing, but in a pretty hands-on way, had
Yeah.
anything to do with what happened. I'm just
Yeah.
curious about that.
Let me jot that down because I've got stuff to say on it, but I don't have it in my notes to talk about it.
Okay.
But I've got stuff to say about it.
Okay. So I'm just curious about that. That's something I'm just interested. Another thing is like normally when it comes to like animals fighting each other or killing each other,
Yeah.
I know it is instinctual, like it is an instinct thing, but it's almost always for a purpose. Like it's for the
Yeah.
purpose of like I'm protecting my territory, or I'm asserting my dominance, or I'm I need food. This just
Hmm.
sounds like, and it could be like, giving them names, and it could have something to do with the human influence, but it just sounds so like human and
Yeah.
not like to an end that makes sense to the instincts of like my understanding of creatures. Now, then
Yeah.
again, neither does what dolphins do to any other creature they interact with. So,
Yeah. No, like it, because it's almost like if it's there's almost this assumption that if it's instincts, like it wouldn't be premeditated. Like it would be,
yeah.
you realize in the moment, like, I need food. That guy has food. I'm gonna
Yeah.
kill him. Or like, I need food. Or like, my kid. I love my kid. There's a human near my kid. I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then like, okay, so the thing about dolphins are also incredibly intelligent. Don't you find it interesting that the more intelligent that an animal gets, the more purposefully violent they can be? or
I'd have to.
seemingly unpurposefully. Because
Yeah.
like like chimps, for example, they're intelligent animals and they're doing like they're having a war. Dolphins are intelligent animals and they do atrocious things. Otters are intelligent animals and they do atrocious things to
Yeah.
corpses. Uh and so like you just think about it and it's just like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting and maybe it doesn't, because I don't know what like octopuses, for example, are very intelligent. I don't know that they do any like they're little escape artists, but I don't know
Yeah.
much else about like if they do anything else wild and crazy like these other
Yeah.
ones. But
It's
it
sinful.
just it almost seems like with the increase in intelligence, there is more of a propensity toward
Hmm.
violence,
Yeah.
unnecessary violence, I guess is what I'll call it, or non-instinctual violence. It,
Yeah.
it seems like from the outside looking in. I don't study animals. That's not my area of I don't have an area of expertise really,
You
but
don't
that's
need
just
one. You can go to Tanzania right now.
that's true. I could just
Yeah.
get up and go and live with the chimps. Um,
Yeah.
so those I don't know.
Again, coolest thing. Sorry.
It is a cool thing to say. It's just those are some of the things going through my head. The other thing is this kind of what you meant when you said to shelve Planet of the Apes earlier?
It is.
Okay.
It is what I meant. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like, how much of a role did this knowledge of like, if the question it came out in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
And if the question is like, did this knowledge of like a chimp war impact the movie? Like, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how like when it would have been first kind of published about, or like talked about.
Planet of the Apes. Ooh, okay, no. Planet of the Apes came out in 1968.
Oh, so this was based on that.
Yeah. Or Planet of the Apes influenced the way that the primatologists saw
Hmm.
this potentially.
I don't think so. Or
I
how they saw it, sure, maybe.
Yeah, like how they interpreted it, not what happened, but just like maybe could have influenced a little bit of the way that they were interpreting what they were watching.
I mean, I think
I don't know
Fegan and Satan happened to find a television.
if
So,
they were like, "That's what we need to do."
yeah. Oh, well, we've got this issue. It's solved now. No, I did get your questions down. So, how did humans affect it? That's a question that people have, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, what was the purpose to the violence? Like, was there a purpose to the violence? And some people would say yes. Would say some people do have theories as to why, but we'll get into that
Okay.
later.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then around the time of those two attacks with Day and Goliath, Hugh just kind of eventually disappeared. Jane Goodall thinks that he was killed by the Kasakela males,
By the
um,
CIA,
by the
the
CIA.
Chimpanzee Intelligence Agency.
Those very chimps.
Yeah.
And some people, some other like primatologists are like, I mean, sometimes they just leave. So maybe he just left, and maybe he did. But either way, like whether he was killed or he was like, I'm not going to be in this anymore. He's not in the picture anymore. So there's that. And then, sorry, I used Wikipedia and just had it kind of summarized so I could tell it in a similar way. Because again, times were getting tight. Uh, so this mentions a male who wasn't in my list earlier. I'm gonna go ahead and put him on my list because it says only 3 males were left in the Kahama tribe. So it's Charlie, Sniff, and this is a really good chimp name, Willy Wally,
That's an amazing chimp name.
who had polio.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think he like had a leg that didn't work or something. One of his arms, one of his legs, something didn't work right. For Willy Wally, one of the remaining males. So something does happen that's a little tricky, and I don't know why he's not on this list. He should be on this list. I must have just forgotten him. We'll put him up here with Fegan because he kind of bounces around leadership as well. But Fabian belongs on this list as well, because he's with the Kasakela. He's son of Flo, and they kind of bounce leadership back and forth between them because they're brothers. In 1975, despite appearing healthy and like seeming like he's all right, I added him just so I could cross him out to show that the Kahama did some work. He just kind of disappeared. And so it's not, that's another one of those like, did he just run away? Did he die? Did he get killed? Hard to say. And then I'm just going to keep crossing names out as we go. Charlie was killed in an attack that wasn't directly observed. Fishermen were fishing and they heard some fierce like combat and violence and terrible noises. And then 3 days later, his body was found with terrible injuries on it. So we can draw conclusions as to what happened. Keep writing cute names just for them to die. There was a female named Madam B. Very cute name. She did die. So not good for her. She was Kahama. And then after Charlie's death, Willy Wally disappeared, was never found. So did he die? Probably. And then Sniff was the last one, the last male left. And he made it for a year. Like, he's on his own. Like, he's the only male left. He lives for a year. And then, like, maybe I'm sure that the primatologists are like, they're hoping that he'll either escape or be accepted into the Kasakela. But eventually he was also killed. And at this point, we'll talk about what happened to the females, but the Kasakela have won. And so the females, as we said earlier, one was killed, a couple went missing, and then 3 of them, this is a pretty small tribe, 3 of them were like just kidnapped and stolen back over to the Kasakela side. And there's some speculation that some of the missing females maybe didn't go back to the Kasakelas, didn't die, but they just went to like another adjacent nearby chimpanzee community because there are other communities around, but these are the 2 with beef. Mm-hmm. But maybe they just went, they went away to another one. So this has been the Gombe Chimpanzee War. Well, we can get more into kind of your questions. But do you have any other questions or any other thoughts before we jump into like the next little section?
Not really. This just ended up being so much more intense than I expected.
It's called a war, Gage.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the Emu War is also called a war.
That's true. Yeah, so this is the Gombe Chimpanzee War. Might as well call it the Kasakela Chimpanzee War because they really did a number. They eradicated the other group. So like they totally won.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is that anthropomorphism side where it's like they killed friends and like people like chimps that they had grown up with and looked up to growing up and all of those sorts of things. So it is a pretty dramatic story when you look at it through the human lens, right? Mm-hmm. For chimps, maybe it's like Tuesday. I don't know, but
I mean, for humans, it's kind of Tuesday as well.
That's true. But like a civil war, because I mean, it is a civil war, right? And like it's like the same vibe as like one of our civil wars. Like in civil wars, you've got family members fighting each other and people that grew up on opposite sides of the street fighting each other.
You've got the child of a well-known abolitionist riding jingle bells.
So true.
And being on the south side.
But yeah, so there's that. There were a few things that happened as a result that kind of starts to answer the second question, maybe. Okay. Which the Kasakela, so they win, like they kill all the Kahama, and then they immediately take over like the whole Kahama territory. And so it's like this extra land that's made available to them. and so there is a question of like, did they like want the resources? Did they want the land? Did it? They like think the land should have been theirs, but they pretty much immediately take over that their territory, and now it's their land, which it was originally their land too. Like it was Kasakela land, and then it was Kahama land, and then it was Kasakela land.
Are there like a lot of tall trees in this area?
Probably.
So like they wanted their resources. So what they did is they threw a banana at one of these really tall trees. And then they did it to the another one standing right next to it and blamed it on the Kahana.
Love that.
So they could invade under false pretenses.
A banana has struck the second tree. That's so good. No, I thought you were implying like, oh, they were setting Goody up, like they put a banana up there so he'd go get it, and then when he got it, they pushed him off and killed him. But no, it was 9/11.
Yeah,
it's always 9/11.
It's always 9/11.
Yeah, maybe. We can't say they didn't, right? But anyways, so that happens. They take over the territory, and now they have their whole territory back. This is actually interesting. They're eliminated, but now because they've eliminated the Kahama, the Kasakela, directly butt up to the Kalande chimp community. So they expanded to the south, right? And now they go south, and now they're butted up against the Kalande, who decide that they want to start expanding northward. And so now now the Kasakela are like, hey, listen, man, so sorry. We just went through some stuff. You're much bigger than us. You can have it. Just take it. And so they give up much of the land that they just got back to the Kalande. And then it says they lost at least 2 males to Kalande. I'm going to assume that means death. So we're going to cross out Humphrey and Sherry, RSVP. And so, yeah, and then on the north, I think they were dealing with issues with the Matumba chimpanzee community. And so before too long, they had like shrunk pretty significantly. They'd done all this fighting, and now they're shrunk. But they got really lucky because it looked like the other tribes might have been able to just work together and like eradicate them too, which would have been spicy. But they got really lucky, and they had a bunch of young males that were just kind of coming into adulthood at that point. And so they were able to like be really loud and obnoxious and like look intimidating, and it worked. They like were able to bluff so that the other tribes didn't kill them. And then finally, everything's just like the status quo is back. Everything is as it should be. And now all 3 of those tribes of monkeys, chimps, are still alive today, still doing their thing to this day.
That's wild.
Yeah, there are some things that almost other effects that people have seen or thought they might have seen. A guy named Ferguson, last name, don't have his first name, thought that it might have led to some transgenerational violence. So like the children of these chimps being more violent than they normally would be, just because it's like what they've learned and what they've seen. So for instance, Frodo, who is the son of what's her name?
Flo?
He's in the F family, not Flo, younger than like her daughter, son of her daughter.
Okay.
Like he becomes an alpha male, and he's like known for being super aggressive and like fighting all the time. He was born in 1976 during the war, and then like becomes super aggressive. Like as a teenager, watched violent overthrow and group beating of another alpha male named Goblin. And so there are some questions like, did it lead to like transgenerational violence is what they call it? Did it make them more violent? But nowadays, they're just doing their thing. I don't know how violent they are compared to normal. To answer the first question, which was how did like humans affect it? There are a few theories, a few ideas. One of them is that when Jane showed up with her feeding station with the bananas, things had already kind of been declining. Not sure why, not sure what the purpose was, but bringing the bananas like actually like slowed it down, and helped kind of rally them all together around this new lady who has a bunch of bananas for us. So that it
Interesting.
happened like 10 years later. So that's one theory. Another theory, like, I don't think that there's anything about like their presence necessarily exacerbating it, but obviously the human presence, like, who knows how many things like this have happened before, but
Yeah.
the human presence, like, you're anthropomorphizing more that you're morphing things.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, you
so
mentioned that the other two tribes were expanding as well. The other two
yeah,
groups of chimpanzees were expanding as well. And so, I mean, you would have to assume then that this is just Tuesday. Like they're just
yeah.
doing the ebb and flow of expanding and receding and
Unless they're expanding because they can tell that the Kasakela are weak because they've just engaged in war. Because that was something that was interesting. I can't remember where I read it, but there was something about like someone may have escaped instead of being killed, they disappeared, but they may have escaped because they had good contacts with a tribe to the east. And like it's all kinds of spicy and weird.
yeah. I mean, okay. Also, real quick, I need to throw this out there before I forget it. If I had a
Sure.
dollar for every time someone named Frodo watched someone whose name sounds similar to Goblin get beat up, I'd have $2, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. It's a dumb joke.
I was just thinking through like, okay, so she likes Lord of the Rings. So that's interesting. She likes Lord of the Rings. She has a weird understanding of who the good guy is in the Bible. Thought the word Fegan could be a good name. Yeah, but yeah, so that's it. That's the Gombe Chimpanzee War, 1971 to 75, something like that. A lot of dead chimps. It's really the only, like, we talked about how it might be Tuesday, but this is very unique. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the only, as far as I understand, this is the only known instance of like chimpanzees getting together and like plotting to systematically wipe out another tribe. Like, usually they're territorial,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's that. But like they would have the males join them. Like, hey, I'm gonna come into your land. It's my land now. You're one of us now. Or like, hey, you're not accepting that, so we're gonna fight
Mm-hmm.
because you're not accepting that I'm your boss now. Uh, but like this idea of like, no, six of us, we're gonna go kill that guy because he was one of us and he's not anymore. Who knows what the because is. But like we're gonna gang up and we're gonna sneak attack and kill this guy. Like that's brand new and that's unique and it hasn't happened since.
Okay.
If you look online, you'll find a lot of jokes about guerrilla warfare. Uh, so, do you have any questions or thoughts or ideas?
Not really. This is just weird. Like I love it. You like
Yeah,
thank you so much for studying and sharing, but this is
happy.
wild.
Yeah, I like I said earlier, Jane had an understanding like chimps, they're like us but nicer, and they're so not peaceful, but like they're nicer. And then she has, I'll find the exact quote here. For several years, I'd struggled to come to terms with this new knowledge. Often, when I woke in the night, horrific pictures sprang unbidden to my mind. Satan, cupping his hand below Sniff's chin to drink the blood that welled from a great wound on his face. Old Rodolph, usually so benign, standing upright to hurl a 4-pound rock at Godey's prostrate body. Jomio, tearing a strip of skin from Day's thigh. Fegan, charging and hitting again and again the stricken, quivering body of Goliath, one of his childhood heroes. Uh, so,
Oh.
yeah, so it kind of stuck with her a little bit, and impacted her understanding of them. Oh yeah, and we did talk about like the idea of cannibalism a little bit. Like they did engage in cannibalism. Like they would kill them and like eat pieces. Welcome to the Gombe Chimpanzee War.
Wow. Why haven't they made a movie about this?
I think they have. I think they might have made one in like 2023. I don't know if it would have been a documentary. I mean, they made Planet of the Apes,
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
pretty much there. Okay, so I've got on r/documentaries The Gombe Chimpanzee War 2023, a haunting look into the first documented case of inter-community violence between non-human animals.
Well, and then there's another one, People of the Forest, the Chimps of Gombe from
Yeah.
1988.
Yeah. That's another one that I'd seen a little bit of in my research. I didn't watch any of it, but yeah. So there you go, friends at home. Hope you rest better tonight, knowing that you haven't upset any chimps. Probably
Yeah.
you were on thin ice, Brittany,
Yeah, there was just a pane of glass between her and certain death.
and certain death. She would have gotten up and walked around a little bit, and then succumbed to her injuries a few days later, as per the rules.
Yeah,
So,
as per the rules, unless they tried to rip her leg off.
yeah. Yep.
Holy cow.
Uh, thanks for listening, everybody. If you're still here, glad you're here. Tell you what, Gage, I would go ahead and put the don't bury the lead with this. I think that people will need it to know that it's worth sticking around until later.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Oh
but
my
thanks
god.
for learning about the Gombe Chimpanzee War, and about Jane Goodall, and about uh, the Gombe Stream National Park, and chimpanzees. They wage war. They use tools.
Sometimes
Let
they
them
are
vote.
tools.
Sometimes they are tools. That kind of, yeah. But yeah, so thanks for listening. Well, we really appreciate you guys. Are glad you're still here. If you're not, well, glad we had you. Huge shout out, as always, to Adam Ward and Jared for writing our outro music. We appreciate it. It's good music. Yeah, anyone else you want to thank? Huge shout out to Orange Cat Always for nothing. So,
Existing at some point in
yeah.
time. Thank you to everybody who's stuck around, as DJ said. Thank you for
Yeah.
being here, just hanging out with us. It's really cool. I know we're not like a huge podcast or anything, but it's just really cool to see that like there are, you know, dozens of people who hang out with us on a pretty much weekly basis. And so that's really cool. Also, thank you, DJ, for putting this all together. It was really fun to learn from you. All the stories that you tell are wild in their own way. This one's probably affecting me the most, and I don't know if it's just because I'm like tired or what, but this one's so like it's just really it's got me tongue tied right now. It's so
Man.
wild.
Are you gonna go do your own research?
Maybe like go deeper. I might like try to buy one of the books or all of the
Yeah.
books. I don't know.
I think you're looking for Through the Window,
Through the window. Okay.
written in 2010, is my understanding.
Gotcha. But yeah, wild story. Yeah, thank you everyone for being involved. If you're listening on the audio platforms, check us out on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, check us out on the audio platforms. We have a lot of episodes that aren't on YouTube at this time, and I may or may not ever actually get around to getting them on YouTube. So that is still to be seen. Still love you guys. Just life is life. Uh, regardless, thank you for sticking around. If you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe, leave a review, like, comment, whatever it is that you do. Whether you do or don't, we love you. We're glad you're here. Stay good, people. Stay beautiful.
As always, thank
That's all, folks.
yourselves.